So why is art and design important? Because without art and design, you don't really have life. Life is predicated on moving things around, changing your environment, creating a different feel, a different aesthetic. Human beings are innately gifted with the ability to modify their environments. We suffer from what I might call aesthetic compulsive disorder. We're the only animals that really do that other than purposes of mating. And when we do that, we're doing something that even elephants who are very smart don't do. Elephants do not trample down a forest so they can see the sunrise coming over Mount Kilimanjaro better. They just want to live. For us to live requires more. It requires art and design.
I think this becomes a really interesting question as a maker, because I think we have a culture now of, or we're developing a culture that has some unhealthy behaviors around why people make images, and a lot of it has to do with how many likes did you get on Instagram or Facebook, or DeviantArt or whatever website you're putting your work on. What's the feedback there, or how much money are you making from selling it? And that external feedback, I think, drives subpar image making. And so my motivations aren't those things at all. You could take the world away right now, you could obliterate the planet, and I would still be an image maker. Like, I can't, it's like an inescapable thing. So why do it? Why make those images? And again, there's a compulsion to make the images. I think I discover things about myself through the making process. I think there's the aspect of self-expression is something that I think a lot of people feel compels them to make their images, but I also think there's an aspect beyond self-expression of self-reflection. I often don't know while I'm making something what it's about. It takes me a little while. The making process itself helps me understand what it is that I'm making and why I'm making it. And I often will hold on to work, so I very rarely will I sell a painting before I've had time to live with it for a while. So after a painting is done, even if somebody wants to buy it, I hold it for a month or two so that I can live with it and try to discern what it is that I was doing and why I made it and how that impacts the sort of broader body of the work. So I do think there's a self-reflection component of it. There's a meditative aspect to making work. There's again, that sense of flow when you get lost in the process of making something. It's a magic space. I mean, I don't know that there are many spaces in the world like that space that you can enter when you're in that flow of making and creating. And so I think that's a really core component of why I make things. So I don't make things for other people. The reality is that I understand the impact that my work will have on other people when they see it, for the most part, because of being a lifelong image maker and understanding the way that images work. But the reality is that I make these things because I need to see them exist in the world in some way.
Well, I think as artists, we often see things in the world that are really beautiful that other people pass by, perhaps. We have like a stronger, I think a lot of people have a strong sense of perception, but some people don't. And so we're going to notice things, like maybe this like beautiful mark on the asphalt, or maybe the way this branch is laying in the grass, or maybe the way the color of the sky, the gradation of blue is just like a million different kinds of blue in that sky. These things, like these details, we notice these things and we find beauty in them, in the world. I used to want to mimic that beauty, or I would see it and I would say, okay, I want to try to make that. But I moved away from that and into a process that was more open and spacious, so that maybe the influences, the inspirations were referenced, but they weren't completely obvious. So that there's kind of, there's underpinnings in the work. And some of those underpinnings are about beauty. Why do I think it's important to create beauty in the world? I think that all human beings suffer greatly. And I think that if we can do anything in our own daily practice to create joy and beauty and then share that in the world, then that's a positive thing. I don't know any better way to say that than that.
Art and design, fundamental role is to questioning cultural assumptions. we make assumptions about why our world is a certain way. And it's art and design's job to visualize those things and ultimately enact change.
My art process really reflects where I am in my life. So yes, I'm very intimately connected to my work. You know, artists and designers have a voice for every aspect of our society, whether it be retail or women's issues or poverty or international affairs. There was a wonderful project that I will never forget. I'm sorry, but I can't remember the name of it. But it's during the drone strikes. An artist made enormous portraits of people that were killed during those drone strikes and put them on the areas where they were bombing with these drones so that the people could actually see that there were real people that they were firing upon. So things like that, as well as during the Ebola crisis when these doctors and nurses were so fully suited that these poor patients, terrified, couldn't even see who was standing there assisting them. So an artist made name tags with a picture and a little story about who that person was so that there was this connection. So artists and designers are critical in so many aspects of society.
The role of art and design in culture, you know, when I think of design, I think design's everywhere. The good design product is the one you're going to go for. And how is, you know, a human being going through an experience from going to the post office, going to the library, going to a sporting event? What's that full experience? You know, when you go to the post office, generally people are upset because they have to stand in line. If, you know, the USPS takes experience design into account, you can actually, you know, make that more of a fluid experience and an enjoyable experience. If you go to a baseball game, you know, before you had to go through, you know, printing out your tickets at home, now you can just do it on your mobile device, and that, you know, improves that user experience. So we got to think, when you think about design, you think about overall holistically, not just the collateral, but also what people go through, and that's the, you know, whole experience side of things. So that's very important these days. You know, user experience goes, you know, back to your mobile device. People are on their phone. The user experience. If something didn't work out right, if the app took too long to load, you're going to just, you know, never open that app again. So you have to have a fluid and nice experience for the user.
So we think about the artist who's very pragmatic, or the designer who has a goal or who has a client and they're working towards that and they're making manipulations to whatever their project is in order to fulfill or meet that want. But there's also another methodology that I've always found to be particularly intriguing, and it's related to the concept of the zeitgeist. And the zeitgeist is a German term that's translated to the spirit of our age. What zeitgeist really is looking at is the concept that as humans, we actually share more than just common language, common culture, common heritage. We actually share a subconscious. There's a collective subconscious that affects all of us. It's difficult to explain something that is a pretty deep philosophical concept to students who perhaps have never had philosophy before, and I don't know if it's a really great example, but I always use this visual. You know, think of Blue Planet, and you watch Blue Planet, which I just find to be mesmerizing, and I could sit there forever and watch all of these different wonderful shots of the ocean, which is such a vast space. My favorite images on Blue Planet are these ones where you see massive schools of fish. And I mean, you know, more than thousands and thousands and thousands of fish, and they're all swimming, and they're going like this very, very quickly. And you don't see any predator, anything that's indicating why, but all of a sudden, they all switch at the same time. And there's a lot of philosophers and academics who have dedicated their lives to metaphysics and concepts related to the zeitgeist, and this idea that there is something we cannot see, something that is intangible, that in fact dictates our behavior collectively. And so a lot of scholars have used that as a way to explore this idea of more of a spiritual approach to art, something that is driven internally as opposed to something that is requested on behalf of a patron.
If you want to make a work of art and it makes you happy, then make it. If you want to design something that's going to help people, then design it. And I think that that is going to influence and impact people in a positive way. If you put your heart into it, and your mind and your soul, you take all that you know and all that you feel and all that you want and put that into it, there's no way that it can't impact people in a positive way.
Keep your mind as open as possible. Your professors might ask you to do something that you think is absurd or out of the box or doesn't make any sense. But it's important to go through the process of being confused. It's a lot of what art is. Positioning yourself in a way to be confused to the point where you can kind of deconstruct the things you thought you knew. Broadly and more professionally, critical thinking and creative problem solving has applications across all disciplines. And it's the artist's role to find global solutions within disciplines and across disciplines to make our world oh God, I really don't want to say that, to make our world a better place, but it's true.
My advice is this, that talent measures very little, that effort measures almost everything. You can think that you have a gift, you can think that you're talented, you can do all kinds of stuff that relate to talent, but the real deal is effort. Let me say that again. Talent and having a gift is a great concept, but most people can't check and see if they have that talent or have that gift. They have to be told it by somebody else who may not be a reliable witness. So, in the absence of that evidence, work. Everything I know, I learned by working, not because I was given a gift that made it all there for me the minute I hit the planet.